Hey guys, Jake Steele, Iron and Steel. This is podcast episode number 15, and thank you so much for being here. So, ironandsteel.com is the website. The theme of this podcast, if you're just getting into this, is essentially it's just me grabbing articles off of my website that I've written and published and reading them aloud. So, occasionally we'll do a Q&A at the end of some of these podcasts. More often than not, we'll do a Q&A. So I get people that ask questions pretty frequently. Sometimes I'll post something on social media asking for questions or comments or whatever, and I get quite a few. So last week's podcast, I did a Q&A at the end of it, and I answered some questions, and then I had a bunch left over that I didn't get to / purposely didn't answer because they were all sort of asking either the same thing or in different ways, or were, at least the same theme. And so, long story short, I had quite a few questions last week having to do with buying and selling cars. And so what I did was, rather than answer those last week, I just kind of put them in a pile and then decided that I would answer them at the beginning of this podcast, because it's sort of the lead into the story that I'm going to read you today, which is called Selling Made Easy, or at least less hard. And it's an article that I wrote a couple of years ago. It was a 2-part deal, one from the perspective of the buyer, one from the perspective of the seller, and basically just kind of some do's and don'ts, or at least some tips for people trying to sell an antique car or buy an antique car. And so I wrote a couple of articles and having to do with that process from both perspectives. And I'm going to read you the seller's portion this week. So what prompted that was, again, I had quite a few questions that went like this. So one of them was, do you do this for a living? They weren't specific about what this is, but I'm assuming they're not talking about writing. But in either case, the short answer is no. I have other things that I do that pay the quote regular bills, and buying and selling cars, old cars, is just something that I do, A, because I like it, B, because I collect and build these cars anyway, and C, because it pays for my own hot rod addiction. So I'll go in and buy 2 or 3 cars at a time, say they're Model A's or whatever. I'll buy them as a package, and then I'll piece them out, keep what I want, sell off what I don't want, and it sort of enables me to play with old cars without having to dip into the quote like regular money. So that was one question. The next question was, do you buy and sell for a living? So kind of the same thing in a different way. No, I don't. I do it for fun and to essentially pay for my own hot rod habit. The next question was, any tips for listing / selling a project car? I've had my Model A listed for a month. What am I doing wrong? And so this was kind of one of the questions that prompted me to decide to read this article this week. So the short answer to that is continue to listen along. And then another question also had to do with selling. It says, do you list cars for other people? How does that work? So 8 times out of 10, whatever you're seeing, if you're seeing on social media that I'm selling something, it's usually something that I own, something that I've bought, or something that I've had. Occasionally I'll list things for other people too. The way that it works normally is, it depends. If you just, if my buddy calls and says, hey, I want to sell this car, can you list it for me? Or the big thing is people want me to write the ad for them because they don't know how to write an ad. So, which is one of the things that we're going to go over in the story this episode. So, what'll happen is a friend will call or text and say, hey, I want to sell this. Can you list it for me? And I'll essentially just use their photos, write the ad and post it, and use my platform to post it and sort of get the word out. That's one thing. Occasionally guys, local guys will bring me a car and just say, call me when you have $30,000 in cash, or whatever the case is, and then you keep whatever's on top. And so sometimes I'll do that. Those are more involved. That's where I'm actually taking the photos, which is a huge part of trying to sell a car. Taking the photos, I'm storing the car, I'm showing the car, I'm handling every element of the sale. So normally in those cases, when it's a lot more involved, I don't charge a fee necessarily, but I won't take it on if I don't think I could make just a little bit. So, whether it's $500 or $1,000 or whatever. So those are kind of, we play it by ear basically. But yeah, so anyway, a lot of questions centered around buying and selling cars, and some people looking for clarity about that process and just what I do and what Iron and Steel is or isn't. So, and just as a blanket statement, Iron and Steel has nothing really to do with buying and selling cars, writing about cars, interviewing people about their cars, and writing their stories. That's the focus of ironandsteel.com and of this podcast. So, but occasionally there is, of course, overlap and some different tie-ins, and that's where we are today. So, again, bunch of questions about buying and selling cars, and those were some of them, and that's what prompted me to read you this story today, which is called Selling Made Easy, or at least less hard, and it's on ironandsteel.com. You're welcome to go check it out for yourself, or kick back and relax, and I'll read you a story about the basics about selling an old car. Thanks again for being here. Look, when it comes to Craigslist, I've seen a thing or two. When you're addicted to old cars, you are forced into a relationship with good old Craig. That's just the way it is. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many hours I've spent scrolling and scanning for old tin. I've bought a lot of cars, and I've met a lot of people in the process. I've also sold a metric shit ton of things just the same way. And somewhere along the line, I've figured out what works and what doesn't. I'll write about these things and offer tips from two perspectives, the buyer and the seller, in two separate articles, in hopes that I can offer some perspective based off of what I've learned. In this article, let's talk about selling. Now, I'm using Craigslist as an almost generic term. This applies to Facebook, Instagram, or whatever newfangled apps you kids are using these days. Ready? Here it goes. Number one, you've got to wash the thing. I don't care what you're selling. At least pretend to give a shit about it. Even if it's been sitting stuffed away in a garage for 2 years, knock the Pampers boxes and the bags of cans off the thing, push it outside, and wash it. This seems simple, right? Vacuum it. If you don't, I'm going to assume it isn't valuable to you. Therefore, why should it be to me? I'm going to take that as a sign that I should make a low offer. If it looks like shit, I'm going to value it the same way. And don't take the photos right after you wash it, with the ground still wet around it and the wash bucket next to it and the hose dragged out. It looks fucking tacky. Make it look like it's always been cleaned and cared for. Not like you just washed it for the ad and like you just read some article on ironandsteel.com that told you you had to scrub it up. Number two, photos. Look, you don't need to be Trent Sherrill, but you do need to take quality photos if you want to sell something for the most money possible. period. Your pictures should be well lit, in focus, and to the point. They should have no distractions in the background. You want to show just what you're selling, nothing else. If you're selling a car, you should have a minimum of 7 photos. And really, there's no such thing as too many photos, period. But a minimum of 7 photos. There should be at least a full side shot of the driver's side, the rear, a full passenger side shot, the front, at least 1 interior photo, 1 engine bay photo, and 1 additional overall photo of the car. Preferably in that order. But you always want to make absolute sure that the best photo is the first one. And then imagine that you're doing a walk around and taking photos along the way. If there are negative elements of the car, they should be well documented. But you always want to start with the best photo and end with a good photo. So start on a good note, end on a good note. First and last impressions are equally important, believe me. Number 3, description. I get people asking me to write their ads for them all the time. It sounds stupid. Well, it isn't. You need to know how to write a well-worded ad to be the most successful. The better it is, the better the impression will be on the person reading it. And even more importantly, a little time spent on the front end will save you untold amounts of time on the backside. And by this, I mean putting in all of the information in the ad up front will save you hundreds of phone calls asking basic things like, how does it run? Or how much rust does it have? The information needs to be truthful and straightforward. By the time the person contacts you, the only thing that they should have to ask is, when can I come and see it? If they have a bunch of questions about the car, you did it wrong. Oh, and it seems ridiculous that I should even need to mention this, but I keep seeing these weird ass ads where people are pulling this move where they're not putting the price in the ad. What a fucking waste of everyone's time. Do not do that. Put the price that you want in the ad. If you're flexible, there is no need to put OBO. People that are going to make you an offer are going to make you an offer no matter what. Some people will just pay the asking price unless they're invited to suggest otherwise. So in short, OBO, best offer, firm, all that shit means zero. Put the price and see where you go from there. Here's how I structure the body of an ad. Number 1, the overview. A short paragraph describing the item in general terms. Here's an example. 1931 Ford Model A Coupe. This is a running and driving car with no real rust to speak of, other than the driver's side cowl bottom. The body is reasonably straight and very presentable as a daily driver. It appears to be an older restoration. The interior is in good condition with some wear on the driver's side of the seat. The engine starts and runs well, doesn't overheat. It drives like a Model A should. Upgraded to hydraulic brakes, downdraft carburetor, otherwise stock. Number 2, the bullet points. This should be the basics of the car in a list. This is especially helpful if the car has performance add-ons or some sort of upgrades. It can contain some of the info as the opening paragraph. There's no problem with that. They just need to be in bullet points. Some people are bad at reading stories, but everyone can read bullet points. Here's an example. Bullet point: original 4-cylinder motor, stock Model A 3-speed transmission, stock rear end, 1940 hydraulic brakes, unknown intake, single 94 carburetor, clear title, all these bullet points in a list. It makes a huge difference. Again, a lot of people can't read a story or just simply won't read a story. They may skip over that paragraph, but they can read those bullet points. Number 3, the closing paragraph. This should be a short overview of the car and at least some hint of why you're selling it. Here's an example. This is just a pulled this out of my ass story about a made-up car. This is a really nice running and driving Model A coupe. I have owned and enjoyed it for 5 years, but my interests have changed and it's time for someone else to enjoy it. Or another example. I bought this car a couple of months ago thinking I would use it as a fun weekend cruiser, but I've found something else that will work better for my family instead. Whatever the case is, even if you're just flipping it, make it sound nice, but never lie or attempt to mislead somebody, period. You can put something like this. I bought this car from the son of the original owner a few weeks ago, and I've decided not to keep it. It was a well-maintained and cared-for car for many years and should make someone a nice, reliable toy. Okay, so you're not lying, you're not bullshitting anybody, but you don't need to say that you're flipping it, but you can put it in a nice way. But never lie or bullshit anybody. I see guys trying to pull this shit where they're like, making up stories about, some lineage of the car or saying that they've owned it forever. It's just be straightforward. And lastly, contact info. I know you don't want to hear this, but you need to put your fucking phone number in the ad, right? I know what you're thinking, but Jake, spammers and scammers. Right, listen, I get it, but the deal is this. Serious buyers want to contact you directly, right then, with a phone call. Bullshitters and fucking flakes email back and forth or send you a text. If I'm interested in purchasing something and there's no phone number, I just kind of assume you're not very concerned about selling it. You need to put your phone number in the ad and just deal with the couple of spam calls that you might get. It's a smaller thing to deal with than you think. And your phone number is already likely floating all around cyberspace anyway, so who gives a shit? Just bite the bullet, put your stupid phone number in there. So, there you have it. Results may vary, but this is the basic formula that I adhere to, and it works really well for me. This tends to vet the bullshitters, the time wasters, the tire kickers, and it puts the most serious buyers in front of you right from the start. The goal is to be a quick, easy, painless transaction that everyone walks away from happy. Spend the time up front at the beginning to build a proper ad. You'll be thankful you did once you click post. Okay, there you have it. Selling made easy, or at least less hard. ironandsteel.com is the website again. You're welcome to go there and check that article out for yourself firsthand. It is on, the second or third page. But it is there floating around somewhere in the pile of 30 or 40 articles on ironandsteel.com. You'll see if you're there the follow-up article, Buying Made Easy, or at least less hard, which is the perspective from the other end. And it gives you a lot of helpful tips about how to basically put yourself at the front of the line when you're trying to buy a car, essentially. And all this stuff may seem obvious or stupid or simple or whatever, but man, a lot of people absolutely have no fucking idea how to do this. And so It surprises me, but I see it a lot. People posting ads with no price, posting ads with really terrible descriptions, basically no info, no effort put into the ad whatsoever, and then it's like, DM me if you're interested. It's like, well, how the fuck am I gonna know if I'm interested? Like, you haven't told me anything about this piece of shit that you're selling. So anyway, it makes me crazy. I'm sure it makes other people crazy too, so don't be one of those guys. Again, ironandsteel.com, selling made easy, buying made easy, both those articles are there. It's really basic stuff, don't post a fucking screenshot of something that you posted, like a picture of your car, and over the top it says like flipping switches and smacking bitches. Like, all right, that's not a fucking proper photo for an ad. You just look like a clown. So these screenshots for photos that's garbage. Shitty ads where you're not describing what you're selling, it's fucking just a waste of time. So quit doing that. Just adhere to these basic few bullet points and things that I outlined in this article, and you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of 90% of the rest of these people, these clowns posting shitty ads like that. So anyway, I guess this turned into a rant, but again, ironandsteel.com, that's the website. While you're there, hit the subscribe button and punch in your email, and then you can be updated when there's new content. Once a week for podcasts, lately once a week for articles, and a bunch of other stuff in the meantime too. So new merch, serial killer stuff is still coming. First one's out, John Wayne Gacy. Been selling the shit out of that shirt. I do have 60 or 70 or so in stock on the website, available for purchase. Been selling a lot to people overseas, so if the website's not set up to ship internationally, but I will do it on a case by case. I've just got to get the quote, and then I'll tell you what it is. If you want to pay the crazy shipping prices to get it to wherever you are, of course I will be happy to send it to you. So again, ironandsteel.com. John Wayne Gacy shirts are available there. If you haven't seen them, they're incredible. Drawn by Evan Danes down in Australia. He's a fucking killer artist and tattoo artist, and he drew this absolutely absurd, sort of Roth-inspired, lowbrow, monster, serial killer themed deal. The Gacy one's out, and then the next one is the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. The artwork is done, and I'll have them here in the next couple of weeks. And then he's going to do a third. It'll be a 3-part series, serial killer themed, hot rod shirts and stickers and hats and stuff. So oddly specific, pretty fucking stupid, also pretty bitchin', am I right? So anyway, ironandsteel.com. Thanks again for being here, and I guess next week I will read the Buying Made Easy article. In the meantime, again, you're welcome to go to the site and check it out for yourself. Otherwise, I will chat with you guys again in exactly 7 days.